So here we go. So this is a new project that we're venturing on with ASCD here to really work with teachers to implement the Common Core in a virtual way, in a blended way, and it's all about building capacity. This is about empowering you as participants to really take the Common Core and make it your own and make it work for you. And so as we jump in here, here's kind of the overview of what today is about. This is our convening meeting. So it's really about us coming together, kind of having an orientation, and really figuring out where we want to go. So the good news is this. This is going to be the last webinar of its kind, if you will, where Andrew's really going to be talking at you. I think you'll be thankful for that. And what we're going to do now is we're really going to jump into this whole piece about what is the virtual learning network, what is it going to look like. We're going to dive into eliciting some problems of practice, because that's going to be the main focus of the virtual learning network. It's going to be about problems of practice that you are encountering in the classrooms, that teachers are encountering, and how we might work together to collaborate and problem solve around that. And in addition to that, we're going to build from those problems of practice what we will do in future convenings, in future meetings, in future discussions. We're also going to go through some of the tools that are going to be available to do this work, to do this virtual work, including ASCD Edge and EduCore, and then talk about next steps. So that's really what we're going to do here in this hour together. So the overall goals of the virtual learning network are, one, to really make this as constructivist as possible in an online community. You are going to get out of this virtual learning network what you give. And so from that, what I mean is we're going to be doing work together that is built on your own concerns, your own issues, and problem solving together. This is not going to be a type of online course, for example, where you go and the content is pushed out to you. It's going to be highly collaborative and highly constructive. And related to that, the next piece is going to be around problems of practice, as I mentioned earlier. So we're going to be collaborating a lot in a virtual environment and sharing resources, getting together for these meetings to work on that piece. And then, of course, the other big one is reflect and refine upon our instruction. What's going on, what needs to be worked on, what can we do a little bit differently to make it work a little bit better. And so what I really want to talk about is this is really about personalization in the sense of your own practice as well as our own practice together and working together to do that work. So that's really what this virtual learning network is about, which is a really different type of way for anybody who's experiencing any sort of online teaching, learning. I'm really excited about it because I feel like it's really going to meet your needs because it comes from you, as opposed to me just doing a webinar on some sort of formative assessment, for example. And while that can be very useful, this is going to be highly organic and highly constructivist. So again, you've already heard a really big background about me and where I come from. And I just want to let you know that I'm doing a lot of work, since we're talking about the Common Core, a lot of work right now working with teachers in aligning to the Common Core. That's one of the major pieces of work I've been doing lately. And part of that is doing, developing curriculum out of the Common Core, creating rubrics, working with teachers to change their practice based on the Common Core. And so I'm excited to kind of deepen my own knowledge around this work and work with you all to see, what are we all encountering together, what are we all seeing as some threads of continuity as well as, common problems of practice. So I'm really excited to be jumping on this. And I'm also excited to be kind of deepening my knowledge about online and blended learning and virtual learning networks in general. So like I said, I promise, this will be one of the only times that I will quote-unquote read it from the PowerPoint. I know, right? There's nothing worse than doing any sort of, webinar and they just read off the PowerPoint. I promise, I will try not to do that ever again. But again, this meeting is more of a, really kind of orienting ourselves, but we're going to try to make it as interactive as possible. So that being said, I'm going to send out a quick poll to you because I'd like to get to know you guys initially. Who are you? So I've launched a poll out to you, and I'd like to just take a minute and click which one you are. Are you an ELA educator in the classroom? Are you a teacher leader, a school administrator? What is your role? We'll see. I've got getting some voting going on. Ooh, lots of others initially. I think this will be interesting to see what we mean by others. Oh, okay, we got educators here too. That's, you know, it's a lot. Well, what's also lovely about this polling is that it tells me how many percentage of participants have voted. And right now I've got about 69% of people have voted. So I know there's some people here who may or may not have voted. Let's see here. In general, though, I'm seeing we've got some teacher leaders, a little bit of teacher leaders, but a lot of ELA educators, and but we also have some others. So let's see what we got in terms of, we got some consultants in here, we've got some directors, and so yeah, if you're an other, if you will, it's hard to get as many answers as possible in a poll. Go ahead and, in that question box, go ahead and send in what you are, so I can kind of learn a little bit more about you and your role, because again, we want to make this as customized to your needs as possible. So we have parent educators, curriculum specialists, assistant directors of technology, lots of different roles here. Okay, and that's really good because it's really going to allow us to collaborate together and get some really good feedback from different and multiple perspectives. And I think that's going to be really exciting. That I think there's a quote about you need to talk to people who don't do what you do to get better at what you do. And I think that's going to be great. We're going to get a lot of different perspectives in that. So, related to that, I'm going to do another new poll. I'd like to hear where you're at. As you know, we're all in different stages of implementation. And so I'd like for you to, tell me where you are at. Or if you're maybe a leader, where is your school at or your district in terms of implementing the Common Core? Where are you at right now? Just so that I can see, in general, the read on this. Because this is where the challenge for differentiating instruction comes in. For somebody like me. Okay. Good. 92% of you voted. 100%. Good job, guys. Look at you guys voting and doing all the right things. So it looks like most of us are getting our feet wet, so to speak. Definitely learning, and a lot of us are just starting. So it looks like everyone's just starting or getting that implementation going, but maybe isn't as proficient as we'd like to be, I guess. And I would say that's probably where a lot of us are at. I would say myself, I'm in maybe the C category, but definitely feel like I'm in the B one as well, many times. It depends on the standard, I would actually say. So this is a good read, and this lets us know that we're all in this together, we're all in different stages, and we're all learning. And that's what this is about, being learners. So I'm sure many of you already know about the major shifts from the Common Core. And I mean, I'm not going to talk about all these in depth and talk about it, but if we were to list some of these important kind of common things that people say about what are the instructional shifts of the Common Core. Well, it's really major literacy shifts for all subject areas. Now, although we are an ELA group, I'm sure you're all aware of the literacy shifts in the other areas such as science and social studies. And so I guess we could say that literacy is no longer our job anymore, just our job anyways. Although we have some very specific things that we're being called to do as ELA teachers, secondary ELA teachers for that matter, and even elementary. Where we're changing our literacy instruction, and it's changing a little bit. It's a lot bit for some of us. It depends on what kind of state you're in. Some of those key instructional shifts, of course, are things where we're doing both. We're moving towards maybe some more nonfiction and informational texts, more than maybe we've been used to in the past. But that's a very important piece. And I do want to say there still is the space for the fiction text as well. So I want to recognize that we're not just going to be talking about nonfiction, but we are going to be talking about fiction as well, but that there has been a shift in that. And that a lot, whenever we talk about, if you look at the standards about reading and writing and speaking, it's all grounded in evidence. One of the important things is that you're not just, you're reading and citing with evidence, you're speaking with evidence, you're doing a lot of that. And what I do like about this is the speaking component, that we're really valuing the speaking and listening components. And I'm sure many would agree with me on that many are excited about the fact that, hey, presentation skills, for example, which one you consider a very important 21st century skill, are equally as important. And then, of course, another shift is this idea of complex text with vocabulary and giving students challenging texts so that they're, ready to encounter those texts no matter, where they go after high school. So there, we talk about these terms, college career ready, and that's kind of, the buzzword around the rigorous texts and reading, writing, and speaking. And what the really powerful thing I think about here is that the content is the vehicle with which to explore these standards. So what's really nice about us as ELA teachers is that we do have a lot of flexibility often in terms of the content that we're looking at, what we're reading, and if we're doing historical investigation because it works with our standards, then that's fantastic. So, but a lot of our stuff is very skill-based, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we have to be, we have to know that and know that we've got to maybe think about how are we teaching and assessing these new skills, or refining our teaching of these skills, that are coming from the ELA Common Core. And again, I think one of the areas that even I am challenged with and want to do my own self-learning and get better at this is this idea of complex text. And I'm thinking we're probably going to be doing some deep dive into this content, because one of the things as ELA teachers is if we're being asked to do complex tests in our classrooms, then we have to be able to assess whether or not a text is complex enough. And although there are lists out there that tell us, well, you might want to use that, this, of course, will be a challenge even, for any of us as we look at our reading lists and we look at what's out there and what I have normally used as text in my class. What do I do now? Do I do the same text? Do I do different ones? And how do I know whether or not it's appropriate for that? And how do I build tasks around that? So that's going to be another area of learning that maybe some of us are interested in. And I'd love for you to comment on this. Where are you guys at? And again, you'll notice that there's a questions area. There's a questions area to send things, but there's also a chat area. So please feel free to back channel chat and comments on anything that I'm saying. What you're wondering about. And somebody just sent in a really good question, that they would love to ask a question centered around the nonfiction versus fiction percentage. I think that's a great question that we can actually uncover in this virtual learning network. I think that is I would actually call that a problem of practice that we can explore around, how much time do I devote to nonfiction, fiction texts, in addition to which ones do I pick? I think that is a wonderful question. And so I think that let's keep that as something to be thinking about that we might explore together and collaborate on, in terms of our implementation in the classroom. So let me talk about the virtual learning network, some kind of the overall scope and sequence of, what's going to happen here. This is a 2-year process. A 2-year process. I know. Can you believe it? You're all going to be with me for 2 years. Are you scared yet? I know I am. And there will be 5 webinars per year. This is number 1. And there will be 4 other ones that continue for the rest of this year. And each one will be very specific to the content that you want. Like I said, we're going to be eliciting problems of practice, and from that, these convenings will be constructed. So these are not one-size-fits-all webinars. They are going to be co-constructed with you, by you. Although I will be hosting it and facilitating it, it will be coming from you, and it will be coming from our discussions that occur here, that occur in the ASCD Edge area, and it will be a mix of problem solving, a mix of discussion, as well as maybe some didactic components. But it's going to be highly customized to what you want and need. And again, I love the question around nonfiction versus fiction. That might be something that we attempt to uncover in one of these webinars. In addition, it's synchronous, and by that it means it's going to be happening, live in time, same channel, same place, and it will be recorded and archived on EduCore as well. So we will be recording these and archiving this. So if you have colleagues, for example, that were interested in this and were unable to attend this meeting but want to do this later, have them watch this. It will be posted, as well as you saw the link to the presentation has been sent out to you in a PDF. So don't worry about that. So moving forward, phase 1, kind of what this is this is the virtual convening, and then again, they're structured around problems of practice. So you participants will be identifying issues that they're having implementing the CCSS in their classrooms, and you will get feedback from me, feedback from each other, and we will collaborate with not only with each other, but we will be able to get some other experts in the Common Core to come in for some of these convenings and help us out. So if we encounter something, maybe complex text is something we want to work on, we can get an expert to come in. So this is the thing. Andrew Miller intends in no way to claim to know everything about the Common Core and its implementation. I am simply facilitating this process. I in no way am an expert. I'm learning as much as you are, but there are other people out there that know this material really well or know aspects of the Common Core really well. And so as we encounter these problems of practice together, we will be able to find experts to bring in to these meetings so that we can learn from them. And again, coming from us, which I think is pretty cool. And again, so that's phase one, which is year one. And phase two is, we'll have another convening in that aspect and 4 more webinars that, again, will be more of a deeper dive into those things and localize it into professional networks. And we'll be working more in teams in that deeper dive. But again, it will be highly customized and building upon the work we've done in year one. And again, it's going to be highly organic and highly customized by you. One of the major tools that we are going to be using is ASCD Edge. Just by a quick, chat window structure, how many of you have used, let's see here, how many have used ASCD Edge? Anybody? Has anybody used ASCD Edge? Go ahead and go in the chat window or the questions box. Yeah, so I've got some people saying yes. No, some people have not. Good. Okay, so this is a good read for me. Okay, so ASCD Edge is a piece of ASCD. It's a social networking platform for them, and in it, it's similar to what you might consider like a Facebook, except it's none of the games and silliness some of Facebook has. No bad selfies. Okay, will be posted there, and no weird things that we don't need, and on it, though, however, you can do a lot of good sharing and commenting of resources. There we'll be sharing the videos, audios. We will post events and updates. And that's going to be our primary spot for communication and collaboration in addition to these webinars. It's going to be the main spot. So if you haven't already, it's important for you to register for that group. And I'm going to walk you through how you might do that and what it looks like in there. And Andrew's job is to be walking you through and being present in that ASCD Edge group and sharing things every week, commenting, supporting, asking questions, giving you resources. My job is, again, to facilitate and support your learning. So, if you're encountering something along the way, and, maybe I have a resource for that or your colleague does. So it's really going to be the space where we collaborate together. The other one that we're going to be using as a primary piece is EduCore. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with EduCore. Again, you can feel free to comment and let me know yes or no. I am not familiar with EduCore. It's fine. I just want to know. But in EduCore, it's all about, again, this is funded from Bill and Melinda Gates, just as this VLN is. We'll be hearing me say VLN a lot. It's a free resource, and we like free. And by the way, you can access this even if you're not part of the VLN or not. But we're going to be using a lot of these resources on EduCore, and it has resources that are videos, documents, strategies such as the Literacy Design Collaborative, which is a big piece we're going to be looking at ourselves as a practice that we'll be looking at. And again, it's free resources all about the Common Core and different aspects about the Common Core, from implementation, knowing the standards, knowing about Literacy Design Collaborative, and on all kinds of other things that we will be using and posting and learning about. And let's see. And some people, are writing in here that they're not really familiar with EduCore, but they may have just started exploring it. So I encourage you, as we leave this virtual learning convening meeting, that you just go to EduCore, you sign up, and you just go look around. Look around and see what's available. You'd be surprised what might be useful to you. And by the way, it is currently in the works of being updated. So it's not, as it stands right now, it's going to be going through some updates and being a little bit different, just know that. It's not, I don't think it's quite ready yet. I think we're in the process. We're almost ready to launch, I guess you could call it version 2.0 of it. And in addition to another part of the virtual learning network, including EduCore, Edge, and these meetings, is we are reflective in our practice here at ASCD, and we want to see how it's working for you. And so we will periodically be doing measurement and evaluation tools. And again, these are not going to be tools that take up a lot of your time. We're not going to ask you to complete an epic survey that takes you 3 hours. I literally know that one of the surveys going out is maybe 1 or 2 questions, and it maybe even multiple choice. But we, of course, will ask our volunteers to perhaps do a focus group or do a voluntary phone interview, do some pre and post assessments maybe on some skills. And again, this is all about reflecting and refining the virtual learning network to make it better. So we, again, I in no way claim that this is going to be perfect the first time through. We're going to be learning through that piece. But this is, again, another piece that you'll be seeing. So keep your eyes peeled for these surveys and these measurement tools. Just a quick question, and please do this in the chat window, not necessarily in the question window. What is something you love about teaching ELA? What's something that you love about it? I'd just like to ask that question. One of mine is I am a conventions nerd, and I do like conventions, and maybe I'm just a really big ELA nerd for that reason. But this picture kind of, you Google this thing. I'm sure many of us have heard this before. But I believe punctuation can save lives. I believe it can, because we don't want to eat grandma. But what are some things that you love about ELA? I'll let you guys think about that and maybe type something in the chat window about something you love about teaching ELA. So we're starting to get some responses coming in. I've got one that they love teaching ELA because it allows students to find their voice in writing and express their personalities and let them shine through. Somebody says, that they love teaching ELA for the critical thinking that comes with word choice and figurative language and symbolism and authoritative choices. That's a really complex and critical and requires a lot of critical thinking to do. See if there's any more responses coming in here. Oh, here comes some more. Again, a similar one, how students are able to express themselves through their writing. I think that's a really good one, too. I love teaching writing, too. I love rhetorical strategies. I love it. I love using writing as a powerful tool to convince people to do things, for example. I love that. So as you can, as you might, there's some more. Let's see. Somebody's written that they like to write to create suspense elements within symbol when they're writing something and create an atmosphere. Somebody wrote about that they love teaching ELA because everybody can benefit from ELA skills. Speaking of writing, schools can be used anywhere, is I think what one person is saying. And then somebody also likes teaching ELA just for general communication skills, being able to communicate. And that's true. I'm sure many of you have seen when we talk about what do we want for our students by the time they graduate. Many of us will say we want them to speak clearly, we want them to write effectively, want them to communicate well with others. I think you're absolutely right. So this obviously ELA is important. And the thing that I don't want us to lose sight of is in this virtual learning network is that let's keep these passions alive, and still continue to teach why we love to teach and do the great things that we want to do, and not let and although we might get bogged down in the Common Core, let's not forget that we teach ELA, but we also teach children. I like to say that. I'm like, what do you teach? And I go, I teach children. And so I think we have to continue to remember why we love ELA and keep that passion alive as we implement these Common Core standards, because when we have passion about our teaching, it infuses into the classroom. I'm sure we could all agree about that. So moving forward, let me hold this wrong slide there. So again, I want to mention that a lot of this is building the airplane while flying it, and we want to recognize up front that we're going to be continually revising and reflecting upon this virtual learning network. We're going to be listening to you. We want to hear from you about what works. But again, related to that is we get to build the airplane, which is nice. We are building this from you, and I think that that's something that I want to. I know I keep hammering and saying, but I think it's so important that 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 this is about you and your students and that piece. So related to that, as you can tell, I'm a fan of funny little graphics and fun things like that. And I think the interesting part here is that for many of us who started to do the Common Core, we're discovering that some of the tools that we've done for a million years just don't work as well anymore, or don't do exactly what maybe the Common Core wants. And related to that, I like this quote about, I don't believe that any child, has ever been deeply personally invested in a worksheet. And I mean to the core, and they're good tools, worksheets, I'm not saying they're bad or good tools, but we know that we want to do teaching that is deeply and personally investing for kids. Like, we want them to invest in the learning, and you articulated your passions, and we want those passions to, come from our students too. We want them to be invested in our ELA classrooms. So, moving forward, okay, what do you think are some of the major barriers to integrating the Common Core literacy standards? And notice it says in non-ELA classroom. Now, this is about us, but I think it's also we need to understand what the culture is like outside of our classrooms around ELA. So what do you guys think are some of the big barriers to integrating Common Core literacy in non-ELA classrooms? I want us to think outside the box for a minute around that. And please feel free in the questions box to submit what you think are the biggest barriers. Love it. So we're already getting one response. It says non-ELA teachers may lack the educational skills to teach ELA. I think that's absolutely true. I think think about it. Let's say you taught science for a long time, and you're saying, now you need to teach literacy. Whoa! Like, are they prepared for that? Some teachers are not comfortable with the teaching of writing or doing more writing in their classroom. And somebody else has articulated that another barrier is finding interesting ways, and I love that word, interesting ways to integrate informational text into science, social studies classrooms so as not to turn students away from any of the subjects. As in, how do we find the right texts? It's not just, okay, let's read the textbook, for example, but are there some provocative texts that we might do that would be, it's about engagement? I think it's true. That's true. It says other subject areas teachers focus on the content of the text rather than conventions of the text. That's an interesting point too. It might be a barrier. And then I think another barrier that someone's saying is that having other areas willing to raise the bar past the traditional scan grading and assess using meaningful methods, including writing, and willing to assess deeply as an ELA teacher. So I think what that comment is trying to say is that it's about what we expect of kids in our assessments, and that we don't want to make a blanket statement, but sometimes other subject areas, it's all about the assessments that are used may not be deep enough, we might say. And then another barrier is using less of a textbook and using more real-world authentic texts. Another one that's been challenging is creating lessons units that integrate the standards from ELA and other standards is layered. So as in, how do we do both? As in, if we're doing a unit on world religions, but we're also doing the literacy standards, how do we do both? And it requires training that we have. In order to do this, this requires teachers to, really get through the training of the Common Core. And you're asking them to teach the curriculum this way, and they haven't been trained. That's going to be some hard work. And we have a participant here from Uzbekistan. They have different standards. And that just changing from different standards, that can be a big shift and a big barrier. If you're just having new standards is a big barrier to integrate and change practice. So thank you for sharing what you think are your biggest barriers, because I would say that it's important to us to have empathy for for other teachers in addition to ourselves. Now the good news is this: because we're ELA, we're the leaders in many ways of this. We have the experience of teaching ELA, even though it may shift our practice, but we do have some knowledge and skills already there. And I think that it's good. That's a good thing, and we can really leverage that and be the teacher leaders for implementation of the Common Core, both in just our ELA classroom, but also for non-ELA teachers. So I really want to think of us as a kind of a group of leaders really going out there and doing some really cool work. So here's actually, I'm going to skip this question. I'm going to move to that. What would you say are major social barriers to implementation of the Common Core? So what are some social barriers? So earlier, if we go back here, this is more mechanical, but what are some social barriers that you see? Let's see here. I want to say a couple more comments came in. Somebody said that far too often writing is only in the ELA classroom. and that text and writing needs to be shared in all all classrooms, and that it's not just our job anymore. I think that's a really good one. Good social barrier. Somebody brought up something about parents. Parents who worry that their child's grade in a non-ELA class can be impacted by their writing. It's a really interesting point. As in, here I am in the science classroom, and you're telling me that it's not just about the content of science anymore, but whether or not I can craft a narrative or an argumentative piece. I think that's a really good point. That's a social barrier that parents, push back on, I think. People who feel like, oh, this is so true, which I really appreciate this one, that the CCSS is just one more thing, right? Here we go, another thing, right? And I'm sure, we all of us have experienced initiative fatigue. That's kind of how it goes, and I respect that. And related to that, somebody who's, a social barrier might be somebody who's close to retirement or just not interested in growing as a professional. And that's a social barrier, right? That's an issue that a person is having around that, making a change. And then again, this is just a way of us to kind of elicit some of these problems of practice. I just want to bring these to the surface. We talked about implementation and non-ELA, and we're talking about social barriers now. Another comment was around parents don't really understand the standards and how it will affect daily instruction. Right? If parents don't understand that, then how can we build their capacity as well? We have a perspective here where somebody says, my wife teaches math across the hall for me. She's been using both literature and writing within her room for years, but many math teachers are frustrated and locked into this mode of numbers rather than critical thinking and process. So although math related, I think you're bringing up that one of the social barriers is this idea of the right answer versus the process, and that process is now being valued, and that can be a challenge and a social barrier. That we're not, it's not just about getting it right, but going through a process. In fact, if you look at the Common Core, there's so many writing process standards that are valued that must be taught in this test. This is a good social barrier. Parents are confusing rigorous text complexity, as inherently challenging because of the standards themselves. So parents not really understanding the Common Core, as in this is that, rigorous text meaning, it's got to be super, super hard. There's a piece there about complex texts that it's got to be appropriate too. You know what I mean? It's not like okay, sixth graders, I want you to read this really, really difficult. Here's the Odyssey, go. You know what I mean? Like that's not what we're talking about here. And again, another one around parents. Parents to understand how it will prepare students for college. So I can tell that one of these social barriers that might be a problem with practice we uncover is parents, and how do we message to parents and see how maybe other people are doing that. So I just want to say that's a really good thing we might elicit from that. So, some things that I thought about is, here's some things that you already guessed what I was thinking. Somebody said one more thing. Somebody is, somebody who's just kind of satisfied in their place and they don't feel like they want to change at all. And there's some other things in here that you may have thought of, things like, I don't have enough time. We always worry about time, I'm sure. This idea of it being top down, or feeling like it doesn't fit into content areas. So I love how you already guessed what I was thinking. And I think collaboration time is another critical one too. Oh, another response came in here. So another one is, I'm going to put out another poll here. I love my polls. Trying to make this as interactive as possible. Okay. So, we're back here with the poll results. As you can see, it's an area of development. So, are we ready, or do educators feel they have it? And some say yes and some say no. And I think that's an important thing to note around, are we prepared to do this? And I think somebody already articulated that earlier around that this is a big, big challenge for all of us, and that it's we're unsure if everyone's prepared to do this work. And I think there's a lot of learning that goes there. Let's see. I would say this. What are some areas of increased? And I don't know why it's doing that. Actually, I'm gonna move forward here because I think we're kind of pressed. Yeah, we're pressed for time here. So Mr. Miller is adjusting. Okay. So here's another question I want to submit to you. Do teachers from different subject areas in your building have sufficient opportunities to collaborate and learn from one another? I'd love to hear your responses around this, because this might be another problem of practice we might work on together. I love these responses already. Other than lunch, no. Let's see if there's anything else that people can say here. For elementary, yes. Because we teach all subjects and we meet with our grade level, so the first grade teachers might meet, for example. That's good to hear. I'm glad you have that space for yourself. Somebody says we have weekly PD time. We have hours available every week to collaborate. Oh, lucky, lucky. I love that. That's fantastic. I'm glad that you have that. And again, this is about different subject areas. I like this. This is a really good caveat around this idea of collaboration. It says there may be time that teachers may not know how to use the collaboration time in the best way to impact student learning. I think that's a really good point, that if we're going to be doing collaboration, how do we do it effectively? When teachers just, yes, they have opportunities to collaborate amongst themselves, but not necessarily with ELA teachers, and then elementary teachers meet twice a week at least. And then some people are saying, no, we don't have time. So I'm totally with you around this. I think that we're all in different structures in different places. So I want to encourage us all to really try to leverage this VLN as a place to collaborate, because we may or may not have that opportunity in our own classrooms to work on that. And so really, I mean, this place is here for you guys, and I'm excited to be meeting your needs. Here's the other one. Do you feel teachers are prepared, supported to select appropriate complex texts? We'll wait until we see some more come in. And feel free to comment about why or why not you think that's true. So I'm seeing some very mixed results so far. Some people are saying, help, help, help. I need much more PD for this personally. Some people are saying, teachers are not ready to do this. Some people are saying, with some training they might be able to, and many of you are still learning. And then somebody's also talking about, what about, ELL or ESOL teachers, English language learners, how is that being impacted when we talk about the Common Core? I love that problem of practice too. I think that's a really important thing to think about as we're implementing that it must be for all kids. Many of our kids are ELL, so we think about that. Somebody's saying they're prepared to do this. Easy access to it, no. So there's a difference between knowing and being able to actually get the complex texts. So I think that's a really good, important point. And I think this is an important one too. A lot of teachers just don't have the time to track down such resources. How do I am picking the appropriate complex text for that student? And that means I've got to go find it. And do I always have time to do that? Let's be honest. We talk about time, okay? This is a really good point too. They may be prepared to select the complex text, but there's resistance to abandoning the texts that are currently being used, right? And I think that's a really, think about it. You've been teaching this text for 10 years, for example, and all of a sudden you're told, well, it might not be the appropriate complex text. What do you do with that? I would resist. I'm sure I would. And people are being very honest in their responses. They're saying, I feel I am not ready to do this. I'm not ready to select complex text, and it's based on proficiency levels. So again, it sounds like this might be a problem of practice that we might work together on, where we might leverage some experts in the room, but also really develop our own professional learning. This is another one. This is actually one I push for a lot. Are teachers prepared to teach and assess 21st century skills embedded in the Common Core standards? So this is one about we did one on complex text. Now this is one about 21st century skills. What are we going to do there? That's a whole nother ball game, isn't it? Do you guys know how many times the word analyze appears in the Common Core? 94. Yes, we counted. And I will also say this: there is a collaboration standard at each grade level. I'm sure any of us who've even looked there, it says we'll collaborate on collaborative decision making. that means you got to teach collaboration. And my question is, are we prepared to do that? And I think that that's something to be thinking about. And again, I think this might be a problem with practice. And some people are saying, you know what? The 4 C's or the 3 C's you might call them are being. Some people are saying that it's being incorporated now. They're starting to incorporate it into their lessons. Some people are talking about, we are using more and more technology. That some of us are going to a one-to-one initiative, but that it's baby steps. That we're starting to use technology more daily. We have a teacher here who does project-based learning and habits of heart and mind, and so those are just the 4 C's or 21st century skills are just part of who they are. So that there's already some skill set there. And somebody's also commented that creativity though is maybe neglected in instruction. Maybe we can teach communication skills, but what about teaching creativity? If we're calling kids to do that and be more creative with their work, which is actually called for in the Common Core, how do we do that? I think that's a really good point. So I'm moving, as you can see, I'm adjusting and moving along for time's sake. So I will say this. Those are some of the problems of practice I'm thinking about, I'm anticipating you're having. However, this is just Andrew anticipating. I would like for you right now to submit to me a problem that wasn't covered. I know early in the webinar, a couple of you submitted a problem of practice. Those disappeared when I got cut off. So could you please resend those in? I want to make sure I get all of these problems of practice recorded and thought about, because these are the things that are going to be explored in our next meetings virtually, but also in our ASCD Edge site. So please, is there anything that you're thinking about, a challenge, a problem of practice that wasn't covered? How do we meet your needs? What are some things you're dealing with? I will be quiet and let you all submit. Okay. Somebody mentioned text complexity as an issue, but also within the idea of English as a second language. How does that work together? And ELL learners in general and the Common Core, that's a good problem of practice. A problem of practice is easy to access, well-organized resources for teachers to draw from, as in moving away from textbook. That's a problem of practice. So maybe some resource gathering and crowdsourcing that we can all use together would be a good use of our time. Any other problems of practice? It's all about wait time, just like in the classroom. And again, I know there was one that was sent earlier. This is, and related to that resources one, is resources for identifying text complexity of existing text. So like, are there resources out there to just, looking at a rubric, for example, and using that to look at a text and evaluate it? Yes, let's see if we can find those things. I love that idea. And then the one that was saying, thank you for resending this one, this idea of nonfiction versus fiction percentages. How much time do I need to be spending on these standards? If it's it's a 60 to 70%, 30 to 30, what is the percentage? And also thinking about, it's not just about us doing fiction and nonfiction. For example, if science and social studies teachers have to be doing nonfiction, does that mean they can take some of the load off of our plate, so to speak? I think this is kind of what you're wondering about, and I think that's really the one. Getting resources that cover Common Core standards. That's again, I'm just seeing a trend of resources and text complexity, ELL, and then a student engagement. I think that's a good one too. How do we engage student in the Common Core? Right? I always like to say this: the Common Core is the what; it's not the how. Right? It might move us into how we might do that, but how do we do that? Yeah. Something around, is there a program that it can analyze for text complexity? Okay, so these are all really good problems of practice I'm going to make sure to record and use as components probably for our future learning. I want to get into a couple more things, some more orientation-based things. Thank you for really being authentic in your feedback with this. I want to talk about ASCD Edge, and this is how you do it. As a member, when you're signed in to ASCD Edge, all you have to do is if you just Google ASCD Edge, this will come up. You will find this. It's really not too complex. You'll see the arrow goes to the groups. You simply go to groups, and when you get to groups, you will see that it will list a bunch of groups, so don't be overwhelmed. It's okay. Do not be panicked. Make sure to go to the Q through Z area right here. You'll see that, and there'll be 41 groups there, and then you'll see VLA and ELA. Okay, and you'll see the other ones as well. And actually, I'm a member of all of them because I'm going to be learning from them. I'm going to be kind of deep diving myself in the other areas. But that's our specific one. You'll notice it says private, and you'll have to request to join. But once I will be checking it regularly to approve you. Now, notice this one says you are the owner of this group, but you should see a button that says request to join right underneath the English Language Arts Virtual Learning Network. And once you do that, it will let me know, and I will go in there and I will approve it. And again, this is, like I said, this is going to be our main space to be sharing resources together and talking. And I'll put up reminders up here at the top, like when is our next convening, what does it look like, and you'll be able to put in comments, YouTubes, photos, videos, events, and comment and reply to things. You can post it to your, to Twitter if you want to, Google+. There will be blogs that we will be doing. I will be doing regular posts to support your learning based on your needs. It could be something that I write or have written and posted. Resources, again, this is where we're going to be collaborating predominantly the time. So if you're not familiar with ASCD Edge yet, please, please, please go there and go for it and get started. That's going to be your first go-to next step after this meeting here, as well as getting colleagues to do it. And again, it's ascdedge.ascd.org. So all you need to do that is just join that, and you'll be able to participate with us. And again, if you have colleagues who are not here, just want to join there now and we're not able to watch this convening, just send them there, and we'll make sure to post everything they need there. And again, this is a web address, and this is sent out to you in the PDF. It will, that will tell you how to use it. If you need more instruction on using ASCD Edge, it's a nice little tutorial video. So feel free to use that as well. Okay, so let me get into EduCore here really briefly, because I know we're running out of time, and just talk about how you navigate it. Again, this is free. You do need to register, but again, it's got a lot of tools, strategies, and documents. And it's all about the Common Core. That's all it's about. It's all about the Common Core. So I want to make sure that you know that that's your other next steps to go look there, because we will be pointing you there throughout our time to go there and look at some of the resources that are there. And you'll see when it looks a little bit like this, and it will be broken down into, you'll see at the top here, different areas such as STEM. Literacy is going to be our predominant area, but you can do that. There'll be an assessment component, and there'll be lots of different types of resources there. And there's a really nice infographic that I'll be posting in the ASCD Edge thing soon about using EduCore. And I just want to highlight those major components right now. Number one is the watch thing. If you see this, it means you can watch something. There are videos that you can watch together, or the video you used with your PLC or faculty. And so anytime you see that, it means something to watch. Anytime you see this, it means something to read. So articles, papers, teaching methods, examples, those will be some things to read. There's also this thing that has to do with learning. It'll be about more deep dives into learning, which will be a combination of different things. And it might be Common Core for you, literacy standards if you're not an English teacher, all kinds of good formative assessment components that you can learn about in terms of Common Core. And then related to that, this is the last poll question. One of the things that it talks about in the Common Core is that one project rather is the Literacy Design Collaborative. And we would definitely be looking at this as a component to create units of instruction that are aligned to the Common Core and teach and assess Common Core standards. And please, I just sent out a really quick poll to you about your familiarity with Literacy Design Collaborative. So far I've got not at all familiar, as well as I've read I've read the material and becoming familiar with it. I just want to see what's going on here, but we have a lot of people that are not at all familiar. Well, I got to tell you, I do some LDC work and LDC trainings with teachers, and one of the things I like about it is this idea that the Common Core is hardwired into these literacy design collaborative. They're called modules. You might call them units of instruction or modules. So that's a nice piece there. I encourage you to go look at some of these things. They're in the EduCore site, and they have these free modules. I encourage you to go let's be honest, steal them. They're good. And we're going to talk about perhaps designing our own modules to meet our own needs in our classrooms, and we're going to be working on that as well. So that's another piece that I want to talk about in terms of problems in practice. Okay. Another thing is this create idea, creating stuff. These are LDC and the math components, MDC modules, and they've got some very specific templates and examples for us to create workflow that's in the Common Core. So that's another aspect of the EduCore worksite. And of course, there's the Explore button, which there's a lot of different things to explore as you encounter, Common Core state standards, and these are some different things to meet your needs on the site. So again, those are the major components. And I recommend as you go through, as you go back to your schools, your sites, I recommend using some of these EduCore things just in your own learning, in your own professional learning communities or faculty, or even by yourself. And we will be using it in this last part to connect and share. We'll be doing it primarily in our VLN to connect and share together. And using EduCore, because again, this is all about meeting your needs. And again, we will be looking at EduCore things that come out of our problems of practice that we solicited, and again, doing that. So, do you have any questions, comments, concerns? Thank you so much for putting out. Somebody asked a question about, is it similar to ELA modules of EngageNewYork.org? I don't know. I will look into that. If somebody knows the answer to that, feel free to say. But I do know that there's probably some ties. I would not guess that it would be totally different. But do you have any comments or questions, concerns about the VLN? I want to open it up to you. And while you may be soliciting your last questions and last minute issues, I do want to say that the next step for you again is to go to ASCD Edge's VLN for ELA group, get in there and getting started on EduCore. And you will be seeing a post very soon from me on ASCD Edge, just asking for welcoming and maybe starting some work on one of these problems in practice. And so thank you so much for sending, you're being authentic about these problems of practice, because we're gonna get into that. And it's going to be we're going to problem solve together. So encourage your friends, if they haven't, to sign up to get involved. And doing that. And again, this is my contact information. You'll see me on ASCD Edge, obviously, as Andrew Miller. And this is my Twitter account. Feel free to tweet me at any time. And this is my email address, so you're more than welcome to email me any questions, comments, concerns, if you're having trouble navigating, if you're having trouble finding something. And again, but first and foremost, post it on ASCD Edge and ask people, where we might find something for that piece. Other than that, we will close out there for today. We're going to leave it open for a little bit so that people can submit any final questions. And again, we are going to record these problems of practice questions so we don't lose them, which is great. Thank you for doing that.